Hello and welcome back to another great session. In this session, we're going to learn about what is data warehouse architecture. Before we learn about data warehouse architecture, let's understand what is architecture by the meaning of the word. So the architecture is basically the process and the planning of the product in terms of design and constructing, or it could be even in terms of constructing a building or any other structure. So data warehouse architecture is the same where it involves the planning, designing and constructing of the data warehouse system. So what are the different type of the data warehouse architectures available? So there are mainly three different types of data warehouse architecture. They are like single tier architecture, two-tier architecture and three-tier architecture. So let's learn about each one of them. Single tier architecture. So the purpose or the objective of a single layer architecture is to minimize as much as possible the amount of the data stored in the data warehouse system. So here the goal is to remove the data redundancy. What do you mean by data redundancy? Is basically having a duplicate data within our database system. So this architecture is not frequently used in practice because of its own limitations. This type of architecture is used by the small enterprises where they do have a limited number of data sources and you're basically keeping the interface and middleware and the backend data in one place. Anyway, I'm going to explain about what is now the middleware and backend data and interface in later sessions. But just understand so this single tier architecture is used for the very small scale organizations where you do not have, the large amount of data is not collected in the system. Next one is this two-tier architecture. Two-layer or two-tier architecture, it separates the physical available sources and the data warehouse. So this architecture is not expandable and also not supporting a large number of end users. It also has connectivity problems because of the network limitations. So this is basically a client server application. Here is a direct communication between the client and the data source server. We call it as a data layer or a database layer. Usually there is no immediate application between client and the database layer. Just to give an example, right? In two-tier architecture would be like, you have a hospital management system, in that you would be storing the patient-related data into the database and retrieving patient information when required. So basically, you will have a data warehouse system in that you will have a historic the information of the patient and then you want to see that report, right? Then you would just require access from that system. So there is no additional layer in between data warehouse and the interface. The third type of architecture is three-tier architecture. So this is the mostly used, widely used architecture. So it consists of three different type of the layers. First one is the top, middle and the bottom layer. Bottom tier. So in the bottom tier, what do you mean by the bottom tier? The database of the data warehouse serves as the bottom tier. That means this particular section. It is usually a relational database system. Data is cleansed, transformed and loaded into this layer using the backend tools. When I say data is cleansed, transformed and loaded into this layer, this is basically you're making sure you're removing the unwanted data and you're applying certain business rules and you're changing the data from one metric to the other metric, or you might be coming up with a new metric. So you're going to anyway learn about all this ETL, that is extraction, transform and loading, in another separate sessions. Let's learn what is bottom tier. Bottom tier is nothing but it's the database of the data warehouse system. Next one is the middle tier. The middle tier in the data warehouse is an OLAP server which is implemented using either the ROLAP or MOLAP model. ROLAP is Relational Online Analytical Processing, or MOLAP. MOLAP is basically, it's another type of, OLAP system. For user, this application tier presents an abstracted view of the database, and this layer also acts as a mediator between the end user and the database. Here, basically, this is the application server. So you'll learn about this ROLAP, MOLAP, WHOLAP, and all those things, like, in separately. I have a dedicated chapters for them, and we are going to discuss about that. And third one is the top tier. The top tier is a front-end client tier, or the client layer. Top tier is the tools and the API that you connect and get data out from the data warehouse. It could be your query tools, or reporting tools, managed query tools, analysis tools, and data mining tools. So it's basically like the client server or client computer is the one where users are accessing the data, which is processed in the backend system. So this is in short of what are the different type of data warehouse architecture we have. I hope you enjoyed this session. So I will see you in the next chapter. Thank you.